Welcome. We had a lot of issues with Google Hangouts, regardless of the fact that I practiced ahead of time and we started early. But here we are, finally getting started. I think this is what Google Hangouts is kind of all about, right? It's always starting late. My name is Christina Hendricks, and I am, I guess, facilitating this Hangout. And there's still room to join, so because there aren't 10 of us here yet. So there's the URL is on the what? What?
I'm just pointing at Viv.
The URL is on the events page. And can someone put that out over Twitter on the hashtag too, in case anybody wants to join? We might get some weirdos, but I think I can kick them out now. So anyway, so we're doing this as part of a open online course called Teaching with WordPress that's run by myself and a great team of a bunch of other people out of the University of British Columbia. And so I am talking here with Alan Levine and Tennis Morgan about how they teach with WordPress, and then I'll if there's time, I'll give a couple examples of me too. But some of what I'm doing was already on a video that was recorded earlier from examples from UBC. So why don't we start with Tanis? I know you're not feeling that well today, so we can go ahead and start with you. So Tanis Morgan works at the Justice Institute of BC, and other than that, I actually don't know quite what you do. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Oh yeah, okay. So I'm the Associate Dean of the Teaching and Learning Center at the Justice Institute, and basically our mandate of our center is to do a lot with e-learning and innovation. So that's where we put most of our effort. And what this has meant is that we actually have focused quite a bit on an e-learning strategy that involves moving away from the LMS or having less dependency on the LMS and expanding into tools that are more relevant to our students, which in our case, our students are, we're a funny little institution. We basically teach to police, fire, and paramedics, so basically first responders. And what you'll notice about those groups of people is they're not really sit at their desk types. They don't really have jobs that have them sitting in front of a computer all day. So as a result, a lot of what we've been doing with our e-learning strategy is actually thinking about moving more into mobile, because of course if you're in the field and you're out and about and you're not chained to a desk, you most likely have your smartphone with you and have quite a bit of reliance on mobile phones. So that's really kind of, I mean, it's led us down the path towards WordPress, and as a result, actually, we have a lot of WordPress activity at the JI, I think, given that we're still sort of playing around with it. It's picked up really quickly, mainly because WordPress for us is really, it's a very light tool. It's sort of how I like to think of it. It doesn't require a ton of resources like an LMS does. And of course, it's open, which is obviously a plus for the institution, but it lends itself to open activity as well. So it's an open tool that lends itself really well to open. So that's sort of really where our activity is. So I'm not sure, Christina, do you want me to say much more about that, or?
No, I think that's fine.
Keep
Maybe
going.
Just show us a little bit about your what you actually are doing.
So I'll share my screen then, and then get going here. This is a new one for me. So basically, how we've clustered. Yeah, you're not seeing this screen yet. Let me see. Let me get my Google Doc here. Do you see that? My Google Doc?
Not yet. I think it's a little slow. There we go. Yep.
Got it? Okay. So just to give you some context to where WordPress sort of sits at the JI, it's based on this kind of student trajectory that we have, which involves students coming, already having a relationship usually with the institution through their professions or through their communities before they come to the JI. And then, of course, during the JI time, it's typically they're maintaining full employment. They're in very active kind of training, active learning. And usually they're in the process of changing careers or enhancing their career with more professional courses. And then afterwards, they go back into the field. And this is really where we do a lot of our design. It's not just for the during, when the student's at the JI, it's actually for, a lot of it is for the after. So that kind of explains a bit our method to our madness with some of the things we're doing. And I'll just show you, for example, we have two kinds of WordPress courses that we use for teaching. One is the standalone unfacilitated open course. And we do this because there's no logins required or attachment to the student information system. It's mobile friendly, it's accessible, it's just in time. So we have these examples of open standalone courses. But first I'll just jump into the open resources that we use alongside teaching. So these are generally resources that are used to support teaching. They're WordPress sites that somehow fit in with one or more courses, but they're actually also used in the field. So they're basically become places for students to come back to after they leave the JI. So the first one I'll just jump in here is the police guide. This essentially is, in a way, it's kind of almost like our first open textbook. And basically what it is police officers, a guy who's teaching legal elements of the offense to a bunch of students face-to-face. He really found that the big criminal code books that students were using, they're big, they're thick, they're heavy, they're expensive, and he basically realized that, the average police officer really only needs to know about 40 offenses, things like aggravated assault and theft and that sort of thing. And when they're out in the field, they have to write up reports, and they need to reference these sections of the criminal code. So basically, this site is really a packaging of, a kind of like a cheat sheet almost of the 40 most common offenses, and then it's of course available to police officers also in the field, so they know how to write up the report properly, and they know how to basically make sure they have all the information that they have to include. And it's being used quite a bit, and actually it was presented at some big police conference in Texas, and of course everybody thought this was a great idea, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an example of how it's a class resource that really extends much further beyond the class. One of the reasons it's done in WordPress as well is that it allows the instructor to just make edits on his own. He doesn't have to go through somebody to update the HTML or anything like that. It's so simple that he can go in and make changes really quick and on the fly. And that's really a lot of how we use WordPress at the JI, is to sort of save on time and resources, and just enabling people to do things really quickly while they're teaching. Keep going, or how are we doing here for time?
Go.
Go? Okay.
Christina's not.
We're having
muted.
microphone mute issues.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's one of those things where you're just talking to air, so you feel like you need some breaks, right? Another example of that is actually this MyEM resources, so emergency management people. This started off as a bunch of all the artifacts that sit in our emergency management courses in our LMS. They realized, like there's all this information is really useful to the community across Canada. So all the forms that you have to use to fill out, and training materials and that sort of thing. So instead of keeping that in the LMS, which of course isn't very open, they basically created this. It used to be called a learning object repository. We don't call it that anymore, but essentially it's what it is. It crosses several programs. These are all different programs, and they all have sort of very profession-specific resources and training materials, and it's all up here now openly for free on this site. So that was actually one of the first sort of ventures into open that the JI did about 5 years ago. But of course, in order for that to work, it had to be sitting outside the LMS. Maybe I'll just jump into, there's some other examples here. There's some more complicated WordPress sites. We have learned that the more complicated, the more trouble. But one of our first WordPress sites actually was a big federal research project that involved helping small communities, rural communities, create disaster resiliency plans. And so there's a whole database behind this, logins, setups, the whole bit. But it's also a bit of a nightmare at times. But this site, again, is one of those, it's being used in teaching at rural roads and at the JI. but it's actually was designed to be a community resource. So I imagine you're probably sensing the theme here. It's rarely what we do is just for a course only. It's much more, goes much more beyond that. I'll jump up then to the standalone, because the standalone is kind of a really interesting area of activity that we have now. We have a lot of short courses, and what we've learned is short courses, that are 1, 2, 3 days long that move online, they don't really sit very well in LMSs. So again, we've moved a lot of this to WordPress. But the way we have our WordPress set up is that we have to make sure that whoever's running this course is okay with it being completely open, because we don't have any logins, we have no SIS connection. So this works really well for unfacilitated courses. And this one is one that was actually jointly created somehow through UBC and ICORD. It's basically a video-based course on a condition that people who are paraplegic have, and the whole purpose was to have hospital professionals be able to identify this in the emergency room so that they would be able to respond correctly. But basically it's a completely online course with different modules, a lot of different testimonials that were created with interviewing people and that sort of thing. And then there's quizzes and a tie-in to our exam database that we have, so that we can do sort of minimal tracking, because of course a lot of these open courses, people want to know, well, how many people actually did it and how long did it take them to complete it. And we kind of do that through just putting in an exam or a quiz that then can sort of track that. But that's the extent of what we do with that.
So Tanis, I just have a question. So with the quizzes or exams, then you're tracking like who takes them, but it's not like tied into your system so that they get credit or something like that? Are they sort of formative type quizzes, so once you take it you get the answers? Or
pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'd have to navigate in here and show you an example, but yeah, it's basically a module review questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this one I think is being used as a continuing education credit, so I think there was that need to actually have that tracking, but there's no even identifier of student necessarily to this, I don't think. I can't really remember, but it's one of those kind of things where it's pretty open and pretty untracked. So that actually has led us to develop a whole bunch of other stuff in emergency social services, and I'm not going to get into why and how we do this, because we basically have a funding model that's a little bit different, and it means that clients pay us to develop training, and therefore we have a total freedom to release that openly because it actually serves their purpose as well. But basically this Emergency Social Services BC has been pushing, actually, after we developed 2 of these courses openly, they want the whole sort of first year open now, because they're finding that it's attracted a lot of people in Alberta to actually take this course. And that's good news for them, because in the event of a major disaster, when we deplete BC resources, Alberta is going to be called on. So basically the training is going much farther and catching more people. So this really serves their purpose. And again, this is one of those, we've evolved towards a model where you can take the course, you don't need to register the JR or whatever, you can just do the course. But then if you need the credit, you can come and register and do the exam, or have some other means of assessment that will give you then credit for the course. So it's a little bit backwards, but that's a model that we're actually using more and more with WordPress stuff. A lot of times people want it to be open, and then with the option of coming to do the assessment and do the exam. So again, unfacilitated. But it's getting a huge audience, and the access part of this, which is a big part of why we do WordPress too, is really interesting in that we've learned that we're capturing a whole nother audience of people who are sort of intimidated by post-secondary education and would never really go through the whole submit their transcript process and registration and the whole sort of formality of post-secondary education. So it's actually capturing those people who can just go online and do it, and then decide whether they want to go through that to get credit. So I find that really interesting from an access perspective. And I guess the last one I'll talk about here is this winter safety driving. This one is our first experiment with LearnDash, which is a plugin for WordPress that makes it more LMS-y. So we're sort of going cautiously on that. But basically what we have here is, I wonder if I have to log in. This one actually does have a login because it was a way of, again, tracking users. But basically it has before, during, and after winter modules. And they're very short, quick, little mini modules. I think I have to actually log in to go show you what it is. But basically LearnDash is creating this mini module structure that is then tied into a loose sort of badging that and this course is developed for, not for ICBC, but what are these guys? WorkSafe BC. So we're sort of experimenting with the whole, you finish the module, then it sends you a completion and you get a badge sort of idea. And we're carrying this through into a whole nother program around driving as well. So basically it's a work in progress and an experiment, and it's being piloted right now, and it worked, it seems to have worked really well. But again, it sort of takes us in that territory of getting a little bit more complicated once you start adding LearnDash or databases behind things, as we did with the other project. You know, you add complexity, and one of the real reasons we've gone to WordPress is because it's not you can be very simple, and simple can be really good. And certainly I think the best example of that is how this instructor was able to construct this police guide literally off the side of his desk without really any resources, and it's had a huge impact beyond our students and beyond that one little course, which of course for us is a big win because that's really what we're all about. So I can stop there and take questions if you want, or however you want to do this.
Yeah, I was thinking we might throw it out for questions for anybody who would like to ask something.
Unclick our camera.
And Tennis, you can unclick your
your
screen share.
Oh, yes.
Because then every time you talk, it shows your screen. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Thanks for the reminder.
I just want to say, I got a chance to see Tennis's work when I was up at TRU, and the first thing is when you're looking at those, they don't look like blogs, and it's a great example of how you can turn WordPress into an information system. So it's not latest post with a sidebar, and so they've really done a great job with some different design elements that make it rather appealing.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Alan. Yes, we're trying to make it look, I mean, for us the WordPress appeal actually is how good you can make it look. Like that actually is something that we always struggle with well, I personally find it hard with the LMS. So making stuff that's really appealing and easy for students to navigate is kind of a big design thing for us, and certainly mobile. Like we always default to the mobile-friendly templates because it's, as I explained, it's kind of the #1 decision maker before we start designing. Is this going to be a chain to the desk kind of course, or is this a mobile, just-in-time learning kind of thing?
Hi, Viv. Do you have a question?
Hi.
Is that you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm being polite for a change. I'm just wondering then, what template did you use, or do you have a lovely team of coders behind the scene playing with the PHP?
Not at all. We have a very small team. We're a very low resource institution. So we actually purchase our templates. We spend about $40 on a template, and we have our go-to template sort of sites, and they've all been created with purchased templates. We have nobody actually who does any sort of WordPress hard coding at all. In fact, we have our Dennis, our superstar, is in the process of learning all that, and he can tweak them. But we do things quickly. Stuff has to be done pretty quickly, and with not a lot of resources, which is another reason why we love WordPress.
There's a lot of trickery, like in trying to look a lot of times at themes to suggest between looking at the demo and because you never see what the inside looks like, and I've seen some great looking demos where the inner control panel is like such a nightmare, or you find out it doesn't quite do what you thought it could do. So there's a little bit of this like art to trying to find a theme. I've been trying to just do this little site as a volunteer thing for a local organization, and I've been trying to work among some of the free themes, and I'm rather surprisingly frustrated that I haven't found something that did what I wanted to do. A lot of times, because if you're a lot of people like elegant themes, and I went with them for a while, and they look really good on the demo if you do exactly what's in the demo. If you want to go do anything that's not in the demo, and I hate their control panel. That's just my gripe.
We've definitely had a learning curve with themes. In fact, I think our instructional designers and developers will say that that's probably the biggest upfront challenge for them, is they spend a lot of time looking for the right theme. And we've started reusing some themes, like some things just seem to work, like the ESS one is the same theme we use for the police guide. So we're getting better and more efficient at it, but we've certainly made our mistakes. There was one theme that we picked that we ended up putting on a multi-user WordPress instance, and but of course it stopped working because you were only supposed to, when you paid your $40, it was supposed to be for single site, et cetera, right? So we've had our own learning curves, and we do run single site and multi-site because there are instances where we have to have one or the other.
Okay, other questions for Tanis?
The gallery's so quiet. I know these people.
I can think of another one. Okay, I think that's one again. Yeah, I was quite interested in the idea of tracking, but very mildly, because I'm thinking of doing a course, but very much off my own back. And was there a plugin or a widget used for your quiz? So how did that work?
Well, we have question mark, which is we actually have our own sort of question mark server, and you know, because of our privacy laws and all that, we have to kind of do that part on site, have it on our own. So we connect in through that. It's basically, and it doesn't always play very nicely with WordPress. I've had problems in some browsers with question mark opening on my mobile device. It's not a perfect solution, so probably more playing is better. But for us right now, as the hosts of these things, we sort of keep it you know, secure in our own servers. But I'm sure there's probably, I mean, Alan would probably know, there's probably some great stuff out there that's much more user-friendly even. I find question mark is actually hideous, and I mean, it's one of those tools that has tons of functionality and is, you know, if you're a quants person, you can do all kinds of analysis, but it's like, it's just ugly, and yeah, it hasn't been great, to be honest.
It gets slippery because if you're going to track, then people have to create accounts, or somehow you have to identify them, or then there's going to be cookies chasing them, which of course are everywhere. So you know, it becomes a thing. You know, is it going to be a site where students have to log in to do some things? And so there's, I think there's some different ways you can think about tracking. I mean, one way is trying to ask students to track their own work, do something like that. You could probably do stuff through Google Forms where they kind of submit when they do something. Of course, Google has its own sort of limitations in certain countries because of the laws. You know, and you know, a project I'm working on with Tanis, it's a lot of custom code, but we've asked everybody to create Twitter accounts, not to push Twitter on them, but just so they have kind of a unique name. And so I'm using Twitter as sort of a thing whenever they create something on site. They're not creating, putting their username or creating an account, but we're sort of adding that as a tag everywhere they go. And so it's not exactly tracking like you want to do reporting, but there are some alternatives than just having a system where people have to create accounts, which is not necessarily bad. I mean, there are. I haven't done much stuff. Martin probably knows more of this with. Doing stuff with some of the badge plugins, and there's a lot of stuff that people did for a while using BuddyPress, because you know, you create a community, and by that in itself, people are creating accounts.
Yeah.
I know that some people are using Gravity Forms here at UBC, but I don't know enough about them to know how it works.
Gravity Forms are really they're incredibly useful. They do a ton of things, but you know, like you're using them, they allow you to do things just for submitting content. There's some great stuff, you know, that you know, I was inspired that Tom Woodward was doing and is doing at VCU. You can use Gravity Forms to allow people to create content on your site, so it can create posts without having them to create a WordPress account and become a user on your site. So if you have something really simple, you know, this example that, you know, Brian Lamb and I were inspired, was a field biology class where students were filing reports from the field when they see a bug or a flower or something like that. So they could do it from a mobile. They can contribute to the site, but you don't have to go through this thing of, okay, here's how you log into WordPress, and here's how you create your username, and this is the dashboard. And sometimes you don't need to give everybody the dashboard. And that's something that Brian and I talked a lot about, because when you're trying to introduce people new to WordPress, and I have this screenshot of that empty dashboard that says "Hello World." I'm really used to it, and I have a really good sense of where things are. It's a bit of a offsetting experience for your first thing, and so this idea, okay, you're going to come in, you're going to make WordPress your first course. Your head's going to either explode or just say, I'm just doing this. And so it takes a while to do some stuff to really understand the structural. Affordances wasn't the name of this theme, but what's the difference between a post and a page? And all of a sudden, oh, I have that same widget on every page. You don't have to do that. You can do it. You can get rid of the widgets. And so there's a lot of structural parts to WordPress that I adore because I've been in it for 10 years. But for someone new, especially if the first thing they do is creating a course, it's like being thrown into an LMS in some ways, that they're trying to swim around. And so, I would like to see people kind of use WordPress for something else before making a course, per se. And some people may disagree. But to get an understanding about things as simple as the media handling, how to organize pages with a hierarchy, to create something like, I do a lot with this plugin, Page List. So you create a hierarchy of pages, and everywhere it can create an index, does nice widgets, and so when you add a new, sub-page, it automatically updates the index. It's all dynamic. So if you have a table of content structure, that's really handy. But I know from the stuff we were doing at TRU, when you're trying to introduce people to stuff, it's like, well, why would I do that as a page or a post? And I've gotten these sites to work on, and I log in. There's no post. Everything is a page. There's 300 pages, and they're just scattered willy-nilly. And it's understandable because the structural understanding of what's in WordPress is not really clear when you're looking at that blank dashboard. Other people chime in.
Well, I wish I had known enough about Gravity Forms before I created my course. I'm teaching a summer course right now in philosophy, and I'm asking them to do posts on the site with a particular assignment. And yeah, I had to go through 3 screencasts of how to log into the site, and then what's your dashboard, and then how to add a picture, and all this stuff. So it would have been a lot easier if there was just some form they fill out, here, put your text here, here's where your image goes, blah, 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 and then that would have been a lot easier for them. But right now they're figuring it out on their own right now. They're watching the screencasts.
And that was the the premise for some of these Splot projects I was working on in Brian is sometimes you want to do something simple and not have to teach them WordPress, so you just want people to share images, or you want people to be able to write something that's nicely formed. So we kind of built a front end so they never see WordPress. In fact, they never even know that it's WordPress. They're secretly logged in as a generic hidden secret user just to create content. And so that's kind of my interest, is sort of figuring out how can I turn WordPress into something that becomes a tool for other people to use. And so stuff I'm doing is creating stuff that comes as a theme. And so if you want to do something like the DS106 assignment bank, you install this theme and you set some options, and it gives you a lot of functionality. And it becomes more like using WordPress to build an app in some sense, rather than a site. But like Tennis was implying, that gets down the road of this complexity that I'm always tweaking.
I will say, though, that the police guide and then the ESS site, those were actually, basically there was a little bit of hand-holding in the beginning, but, it was pretty much done almost entirely by 2 people who really were, they wouldn't have said that they were, ed tech wizards or anything. They weren't. They're program managers. They're very busy. One was an instructor. He's very busy. He teaches cops, right? It's not like he's sitting around playing with his stuff. So I kind of want to, I think there's sort of there is a complexity, I guess, to WordPress, but there's also a simplicity, and it really has enabled people to do more at our institution as opposed to do less. It's really, it's given them, that agency or whatever to feel, it's sort of like I think they get talked through a template and a structure, and then away they go, and that's, that's great, right? So, but again, simple.
I totally agree. I mean, because you're not giving them the blank slate. I mean, there's sort of there is a structure that you're providing, and that's why WordPress has become it has become what web design used to be, because you build this structure and you give it to your client or your faculty and let them take control of the content. In the old days, people be emailing your web designer content so they could FTP them, and it's great because when I work with for my web design projects, my goal was to become non-essential, like not needed, and I want people to have that management. And so definitely WordPress provides that. There's a difference between kind of coming up with what you've done with sort of like the shell and the framework and throwing them into that WordPress thing and say, okay, go create a course. So and that's definitely I agree, where WordPress shines extremely well.
Yeah.
So I think we should move on to Alan giving some examples of what he's been doing. Sorry to cut us off, but it's 12:42. I don't know what time it is there.
I'm the wrong one to do this because the stuff I do is off the edge, and so most of my
maybe
stuff.
you can tell us about your Splot stuff, or I don't know.
Yeah. Give me I have some screens lined up, but the question is, which one of my windows? Wow, look how many windows I have. I've got this whole window over here. Let's see. Talk about futzing.
That's all right.
So, to share. Clockety clock, clock, clock. That's interesting. Oh, well, there it is. Haha. You're looking at that was my screenshot to show you the empty WordPress page. So, Splot, Brian Lamb is to blame totally for Splot. It was his acronym that we came up in a bar in Kamloops. And I think it was initially simplest possible learning online tools. And he thinks I hate the acronym. I kind of like making fun of acronyms. And so this again was using this idea of WordPress, and the one that we really started with was this idea of a writing tool that we call TRU Writer. So this is a theme that I built that allows people to sort of create something that looks kind of like the style you see on Medium. And so what I did is I built a prototype, and there was an English faculty at TRU who was doing some things where they want their students to be able to publish things online, and they were doing what you're describing, Christina. He was setting up a WordPress site with multiple user accounts and having to teach students how to post on that site. And so I kind of got this idea, like, what if I could just create a form that replaced the internal WordPress environment? So, and I also wanted to do this in a manner that didn't require Gravity Forms. So I learned to code my own WordPress forms because I wanted to make this a minimal thing that doesn't require too many plugins. And so this is what happens when we want people to write. They have to give things a title. And the idea of the Splots was let the writer decide how they want to attribute themselves. So they can be anonymous, which is the default, or they can put their name or their Twitter handle. And then they have, I found out a way you can sort of insert the WordPress actual rich text editor. So I have everything that you can do in WordPress. And the thing that I didn't think was possible that I found out was you can actually paste in content from MS Word here. And as of about, I don't know, WordPress 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, it strips out all that HTML cruft you used to get in Word, and it leaves the basic header formatting, and even preserves footnotes and links and things like that. And we wanted also people to be able to add media. So they can do things like they can change the header image on this thing. This is going to be a terrible demo.
Looks fine to me.
If you don't want to see this, this is like a terrible thing. And so this puts the header image on the thing. So they're actually getting to see that header image. We want to give credit, so I would say Creative Commons by somebody. So you can define categories. I'll call this odd ideas. I probably don't have enough text here. What a lousy demo. And so they go through this iterative process of first they have to save it as a draft, which we do things like boring title. La-di-da-da-da. I just want to get past the error stage. So this is actually not really saving anything. Well, it is sort of saving. Just get past the internal form. Once it's in draft, you can now preview it, and so this would show how it's going to look on the site. Pretty simple. But the idea is we want to give people a way to write these clean sort of publication tools. And so you don't even know that you're in WordPress. So these are some of the, just trying to find some examples. So these are kind of silly. Todd Conaway, of course, wearing his DS106 t-shirt. Not the greatest example. So, but for me, it was really an interesting sort of experiment to figure out how you could sort of take WordPress and almost make it like its own sort of platform. And and some of that is now feeding into some of the work I'm doing with Tanis on a project we're doing with the University of Guadalajara, where I got a lot of improvements to the theme I created to do a version of the DS106 assignment bank and daily create. So I'm trying to take some of the functionality of things that I typically end up custom coding and make it so it could be something that you install by a theme or a plugin. And so a lot of my other work, as you know, has been in like building aggregation sites like DS106 and thought vectors and connected courses, which involves installing these plugins. And if you want it to be something where people can sign up, then you got to rig in a gravity form or something complex to get their feeds into the mix. And most of it for now has been me adding custom code, pulling little bits from Martin Hawksey's code as much as possible. And I'm trying to, my goal for this summer for my next project with VCU is try to make a lot of that into something you could add to your blog once you've installed Feed WordPress with a plugin that would give you the sign-up form and some of the things I've created to generate like the list of subscribed blogs and other things. So I go deep into the machine, and so I didn't show you any code deliberately.
That's all right. So is the Splot writer, and I know there's a couple other ones. There's an audio one, there's an image one at least. Are those available as themes for anyone to?
Yeah, they're on my GitHub, which.
But if I'm just Christina Hendricks and I don't know what the heck I'm doing and I don't use GitHub.
Yeah, well, they're not like official WordPress themes yet.
Okay.
There's a couple things missing on some of them, like documentation.
Okay.
And so they're a little bit beta-ish.
Got it.
I'd be glad to help people. They're close. And I wanted to build them in a way that wouldn't require you paying for anything. So the themes that I use as a parent are all free WordPress themes, and mine's a child theme, which is the way I build my variants of things, and using as few plugins as possible. So it's a little bit of a work in progress. So it's not like I can say go to your theme chooser and press that one button and install. In theory, it shouldn't be too far away, but you have to go through a couple hoops to get things in the WordPress repository, which is another topic not worth going into.
So, questions?
These guys.
I'm looking on Twitter. I'm not
Okay.
seeing any questions in particular. Just comments. The TRU writer is my favorite, and I plan to use for my students next time. That's Mariana Funes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll probably help her.
Okay, so here's one from Chris. My big teaching with WordPress interest is less my teaching with WordPress than helping my co-learners or students learning and connecting with their own WordPress sites.
Yeah, and Chris is running an amazing site right now. This summer course he's doing, University of Alaska Fairbanks. I'll plug it for him. It's a digital citizenship course, I think, for future teachers. So he has them do. He's set up an aggregation. He has them blogging, and he's doing a voracious amount of commenting on their work. So I think he's trying to get them. I think through the idea of having them first use WordPress as sort of a participant, so they get a feel. And he did domain of one's own, so all of his students have set up their own custom domain. And so they are starting their building in their current place. But again, it's really hard to say, like, the first thing I do in WordPress is make a course. I mean, if someone told me to do that, I'd probably go running.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think most of the people we have in this course have already done it to some degree. Have used WordPress a little bit, but I don't know, because nobody has said one way or the other that they haven't. So.
And it's like, I keep saying, like, you have to know it, like, and Tanis is right. You don't necessarily have to know it depending on, what, the use is and how you're setting this up. But when you say, like, go to WordPress and create a blog, or, go get your domain and create your site, it's kind of like, seeing the inside of, like I said, an LMS or Word for the very first time. You're so used to Word. I still get lost in Word.
Yeah. I still get lost in our LMS. I can't use it. I don't understand it, and I always mess it up.
I think that's a useful comparison too. Is for all WordPress. Yes, WordPress can be it can be intimidating on the back end if you think about it too much. But the LMS isn't necessarily a better option. That's sort of it too. We've evolved to WordPress because we actually think that WordPress is easier and more efficient and more friendly to instructors and to students on their mobile devices. So I think given a collection of tools, it's pretty good.
And there are some things like this to think about what you can do without programming. One of the things I did with Brian, we did a presentation, and I used WordPress to be sort of like our presentation tool. It's a theme that has nice giant pictures. But if you can, that's another geeky thing, but you can actually control a lot of the appearance by learning a little bit of CSS and do display none. And so I get rid of footers, I get rid of display elements I don't want, and I actually did quite a bit of customization without doing any template hacking. And so I like it sometimes when you can figure out ways, either through plugins. There's one I throw on our multi-site all the time that adds custom CSS to any theme if it's not already there, and that's super handy because there's always these niggling little things in a theme that visually bother you to say, I really wish that wasn't on the page. And so yeah, it is kind of a geeky thing to learn some CSS and how you can find the way to get rid of things or how to alter their appearance. But it's another level of control that you can take without being a geeky WordPress PHP programmer. And also the thing that we discovered at TRU, running multi-site, which means one site that runs multiple WordPress blogs, that's what our Splot is. And so that was kind of like my development, and then we moved it to this other multi-site called TRU Box, where actually the faculty are creating accounts. When I create something like the Splot Writer as a site, and Brian did a couple things where he filled it out for Ken, who was an English teacher there, and then there's a plugin called NS Site Cloner that we use in multi-site. So you can actually build the things like I mean, I don't know, maybe you use this, guys, at Tanis, at JIBC. You can actually build out the site as a mostly built template, and you can clone it for someone else, and then let them take over and change out the content or the name. And so, again, instead of giving them that blank, empty WordPress thing, you're giving them something that has a lot of structure and capability, just by making a copy of it within that WordPress multi-site.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, we've spent so much time developing WordPress for outside clients. That's sort of one of the reasons why we do single site. But one of the things we haven't gotten into yet, because we're actually too busy creating external WordPress sites, is just as a tool for teaching and learning with our own faculty. I mean, we actually haven't really gotten into, you know, which is kind of, we're sort of the opposite, I think, of what other institutions are doing. We're not actually helping faculty right now create course resources with WordPress, or even sharing the potential of that with them, mainly because we're too busy building these single site handoff to client type of courses. But the same thing motivates both, is that, you know, the clients that we're doing these for, these organizations, these communities, that's our clients, by the way, they need the simple. Again, they usually don't have a lot of resources either, and so the same sort of principles are driving both, but there's so much more that we could be doing with WordPress.
Oh, curse you, Martin Hoxie, for answering a tough question in the chat. Advice on security. People dealing with huge volumes of spam. Oh boy, spam is the dark underbelly, right? You know, I mean, I should count my stars. I've been fairly lucky. I haven't been like victim of huge, major spamming attacks. So, I mean, you know, your first cut are the simple course. You know, getting a Kismet on for dealing with the blog spam, which still stuff gets through. I've been using WordFence quite a lot, which you probably know about, Martin. And we had a hack on our TRU sites, and everything disappeared on us, and we had to call in Pat Lockley to give us some help on tracking it down. And so, sadly, it's a fact of life. You know, a lot of it just because WordPress being that popular, it's a big target. And so, I don't know what to say, because it can rip your heart out when, you know, someone has been trying, you know, innocently to create something, and all of a sudden they're barraged by this. So I'm not a really good security guy, Martin.
So I have to say, and you know, maybe it's different for me because I'm at a university that has its own WordPress install, and you know, is watching all this stuff, and so security hasn't been an issue. And I get spam a lot on my blog, but almost never on my course sites, and I think that's because nobody's looking at them besides the students. I don't know. So the spam issue has not been a problem, and fortunately, you know, depending on your institution, the security issue may not be as well. I don't know what anybody else's experiences have been.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't guarantee that this stuff, sadly, you know, people want to know, is my stuff, you know, gonna, you know, be okay, and then, you know, and they're gonna come to you angry and pissed off when their site is messed up. And you know, you can try all you want to say, like, this is like what you have to allow for the goodness of the free and open internet, but when it happens to you, it's the worst. Martin says it's moving to a new plugin. See, I don't even know this one, Zero Spam. You should talk, Martin. Yeah, Kismet's a problem because as an individual, you can use a Kismet, but when you're talking about wanting to run it for an institutional organization, you have to pay for it. And I know Jim went through a lot of angry blogging details with paying for a Kismet at Mary Washington. Martin's
not going to talk?
No. You just got to sit there and watch.
So the plugin is called Zero Spam. So if you just go to wordpress.org, plugins, Zero Spam, you could find that one. I haven't heard of that one either. So we're low on time, but so I could give just a couple of really brief examples of what I do, because I'm the faculty member who doesn't know what they're doing and who started off with WordPress, you know, using the basic documents online and the videos online, and then I built some very basic sites. So there's the complicated stuff, and then there's the, hey, I'm new to all this, and this is what you can do. So let me just show you one or two things. And again, we do this whole futzing thing where we try to find our screens, right? Okay, here we go. So let me share my screen and go here. Sorry, okay, that's not my course. So are you seeing a screen? Are you seeing me? I mean, my screen? I can't hear anybody. Oh.
Yeah, we got it.
You got it. Thank you.
I could on.
Okay. So this is a course at the University of British Columbia called Arts 1 that I teach. I team teach with a number of other people. And this is just a very basic course site using WordPress. And, you know, I've just got your regular front page. Here's the welcome stuff. I've put on the side announcements. Now this page in particular was created through a special install of WordPress we have at UBC, so I could make this little boxes. I could have several other tabs over here. But I have something similar for my Philosophy 100 site with announcements. I just, basically this is just, what's it called, the archive, recent posts. And I just made all the recent post announcements. So that was really easy. You just stick it in there, right? Of course, not all this stuff is announcements, but okay, whatever. And one thing that I do on the Arts 1 site is it's a course that's team taught, and there's 5 professors, 100 students, but we each have 20 students who are our own students for the whole year. And so I've got 2 sets of blog posts. One is just from my own students. So these are the 20 students that are in my class. And of course, you know, my bandwidth is really slow. There we go. And I'm blogging too as well with them. So they can easily see just the blog posts from their own class, that I'm using Feed WordPress for this. And then we also have a larger site for Arts 1 that has all the blog posts from every student who is blogging in Arts 1. And this course is finished, so the last ones are from April. So they, you know, they can easily just see the blogs from their own site, but then they can also link to this larger site. And this larger site is, we call it Arts 1 Open. It's got all of our recordings of lectures, because we do lecture capture on all of our lectures. We've made a few podcasts, those are there. This is all of the blog posts from ever since we started in 2012, and you can see just the posts from this particular group. We've also got our Twitter feed and basic other stuff. So other than that, look at Philosophy 102 again. You know, I just do your basic stuff. Like, I just post my assignments. I post the weekly schedule. This is a summer course I'm teaching right now, actually, and students go here to see what they need to read. I post my notes, syllabus, links, etc., and it's just very basic. So it's kind of LMS-y, but I want it to be available to other people to use. So, in fact, one of the assignments they're supposed to do is where they have to, this is the one where they have to actually get on the site and log in and figure out the dashboard and all that. So I want them to talk about how they see things out in the world that might be philosophical, and then they have to make a post to this site. And I want that to be public so that they can, so that other people in the world can see, look, what is philosophy? Well, here it is. It's like this song, or it's like this video, or what have you. It's not just Plato and, you know, Immanuel Kant and things like that. So that is one of the reasons why I use WordPress, is for things that I want to be public for other people, and also because I hope maybe my lecture notes and my slides and all that might be useful to other people, and then whatever blog posts the students do I think are useful to other people too. So that's why I do it on WordPress. Let me stop screen sharing. She sounds like someone who took DS 106. Why?
Song. Because yeah, I'm doing songs.
Oh. Yeah, no, I told them they can find anything they want to. So, you know, what is philosophy given what you've done in this course? Now go out and find it somewhere. Let's find something that has philosophical content, and a lot of them are doing songs.
Cool.
So, Vivian is asking, does UBC give you blanket right to release under CC by SA? I don't know what that means, Viv.
You're licensed for your content, like The whole thing
Oh,
about
yes, I can do that. Yeah, because I actually own it. Yeah, not everybody owns their intellectual property in their lecture notes and teaching materials, but I do. At UBC, we do have that IP, so I can do that.
Yeah, I can see where sessionals might run into a little bit of trouble with that.
Yeah, they don't have to, right? I mean, you can still post stuff publicly and not have a CC license on it, just so other people can view it. I just don't, because I don't care, and I have a job, and I'm fine with that. All right, let me check Twitter and see if there are any other questions or anything.
I can't believe all these guys in this call are silent. Matthew and Martin, at least JR spoke up, and of course Viv.
Oh, I
Let's
can
see.
Yeah. Martin's underwater.
I'm a little quiet because I showed up late, so not in the back of the room.
I'm actually a lurker on this one because you guys have way more experience with WordPress than I do. But yeah, anyway, I have a couple of examples that I could share, but I don't know what's your time limit for this thing.
I do have another meeting in about 10 minutes, unfortunately. But you know what you could do, Matthew? If you wanted to create a screencast, you could send me you could tweet it to me, and I can post it on our site. So that'd be cool too, because we're asking people, anybody who has used WordPress for teaching and learning, who wants to create a short screencast. I've already got one from one of our participants, and I'd be happy to post more. So that'd be great.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah.
I can do that.
And Lucas asked on Twitter, do many people outside the university contribute to the Arts 1 course? No. We have the Arts 1 open course. We have made it such that people could sign up, could link their own blogs to it and contribute, but nobody has done that yet, and partly that's because we haven't advertised it. And the reason why we haven't advertised it is because we don't have the manpower, the people power to actually deal with it, to actually interact with the people who are coming in from the things we wanted to do. And we applied for a couple grants and we never got them, so we can't pay students to help us with that. Like, it's hard enough to just run your own website with your own students blogging and read through those and make sure everything is, nobody's being nasty to each other. Like, I don't have time to do that with the public. So it's available, but we haven't done it. So maybe someday we'll get money. All right, I think, well, especially since I have to go to another meeting, I think we should probably bring this to a close. So thank you so much, Tanis and Alan, and everybody else who joined in. And this is an open call to anyone who wants to make a short screencast video about how they use teaching and learning in WordPress, or how they use WordPress in teaching and learning. Yeah, that. And if you want to do that, you can just send me a link to it at CLHendricksBC, and I can post it to our site. So that's at CLHENDRICKSBC. That's my Twitter handle. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stopping the broadcast.